The Theater History Podcast is supported by HowlRound, a Knowledge Commons by and for the theater community. It's available on iTunes and howlround.com. Hi, and welcome to the Theater History Podcast. I'm Mike Leager. All this month we're going to be talking about theater from Spain's Golden Age, and today we're with George Drance. He is the artistic director of the Magis Theatre Company and an artist in residence at Fordham University. And in conjunction with Kelly Johnston and Magis Theatre Company, he's working on a production called Calderon's Two Dreams, one of the major works from the Spanish Golden Age. It opens February 10th at the Ellen Stewart Theatre at LaMaMa. George, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Pedro Calderon de la Barca? Who was he? What is he known for?
Sure. Many argue that he was Spain's greatest playwright. He was certainly very prolific. He had the same high poetry that Lope de Vega had before him. What Calderon brought to the stage that was somewhat different was a deep philosophy and a way of using the drama to ask very, very deep human questions, and sometimes theological questions, sometimes philosophical or social questions. His play Life is a Dream, which he's known best for, really has to do with a kind of a Game of Thrones kind of story about a kingdom where the prince was prophesied as being the worst tyrant whatsoever. And so the king who hears this prophecy is faced with an ethical dilemma. Do I allow this prophecy to come true, or do I somehow try to care for my people in whatever way I can? So he says in his own words, or in the translation that we did at Magis, to prevent a tyrant, I became a tyrant. So he imprisons his son in a tower to prevent this. Now, through perhaps his own conscience, through wondering if he's doing the right thing, all of a sudden the dilemma is working, and he himself is caught in the middle of it. When Segismundo, his son, becomes of age, the father, Basilio, wonders if he can continue to do this, or if he's obliged by his own morals, his own conscience, to see if it's quite possible that human effort and human will can make it past what destiny says. Could he overturn the oracle simply by his good efforts and by his own moral compass? So he decides to create a scenario whereby he will give his son a potion that will put him to sleep. While he's asleep, he'll transport him to the palace. And he awakens, and when he asks about that tower, everyone says that was just a dream. This is the reality. And to see what his life would be if he finds out that he is the true king, the true prince. Will he be able to go up to his task, or will he show exactly what the prophecy foretold? In fact, what happens is, and this is where the great question comes in, is it nature or nurture? Is he tyrannical because he was imprisoned, or was there something already inherent in him that the people need to be protected by? So his first day is a disaster, and of course he commits murder within a few minutes, and he's already just showing himself to be everything that the prophecy said. His father then gives him a potion again, and when he is asleep, he's transferred back to the tower, and when he asks about the palace, then everyone says, well, that was the dream. So it's this kind of a meta-reality where the moral dilemma uses fiction created by the king to test human free will in the eyes of determinism, or in the eyes of fate. That kind of philosophical question really is the fuel of Calderon's dramas. He writes some popular stuff, but that's kind of what he's known for, is those really formative questions and those character journeys which make the audience really think about their own decisions and their own life. I won't give away the surprise ending, but as you can imagine, everything that a Golden Age drama would have, it does. It has love, it has conflict, it has triumph, and so many other characteristics of that Baroque drama. The stock characters that are in the Baroque are all identifiable, and it's really the piece that put him on the map. Now, one of the things that's fascinating about Calderon, and when you ask about why he would rewrite this play, is he became very, very much entrenched in the court. He was very popular, probably very affluent because of this. He had a mistress, and he had at least one child. Now, in about 10 years after he's the court playwright, his brother dies and his mistress dies, and these two losses affect him so much that he wants to leave this life completely, and he wants to retire into the priesthood, which was what his original track was, ironically, by an overbearing father who wanted him to prepare for the clerical state for family reasons. But Calderon chooses of his own volition to seek some of these answers that he's been asking in his dramas. He was trained by the Jesuits in their school in Madrid, and so a lot of the philosophy would probably come from that. Much of his experiences in the drama have their roots in the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, which he probably would have got from his Jesuit education. And when he becomes a priest, he wants to leave writing completely, but the court orders him to continue to write. Well, he says, I will, but I'm going to focus on spiritual allegories. And so he takes on different myths, and he looks at the spiritual underpinnings of the narratives. For example, he'll look at the Orpheus story, and he has an auto sacramental called El Divino Orfeo, the Divine Orpheus. The auto sacramental was a much more popular form. It was not kind of as highbrow as the court drama. It was for all people of all social standing, and it was usually performed on the feast of Corpus Christi, much like the English cycle plays were. So when he begins to write these autos, he continues to use the poetry, to use the philosophy, but now he's much more popular, and they become almost like fables, which lead a lot of people to reject his autos as lesser work. But I think the combining of forms is something that is fascinating. Another thing that Calderon is known for is the form of the zarzuela, which is a play that uses music in it. And many of his settings would go from text to music and back and forth, and he incorporates that into his later autos. Kind of product visibility, perhaps, for his earlier plays, but also a way to keep the attention of the audience and to keep them listening to these very, very heavy theological themes, but with an air of lightness and of something that can sweeten the difficulty of the effort that is required to really understand what these themes are considering. So he's very complex. He uses all of these different forms. But as he writes his autos, eventually he runs out of myths. So instead of allegorizing more mythology, he says, well, I've done this with mythology. Why don't I go back to my own plays? So one of the first plays that he does this with is a play that he wrote about the Odysseus and Circe story, Love, the Greatest Enchantment, or El Mayor Encanto Amor in Spanish. His auto version of that becomes Los Encantos de la Culpa, the enchantment of sin. In some way, the Circe character becomes those things that are temptations in our life. And Odysseus, the hero, is now the human person that is trying to navigate one's way through some destructive influences and forces that are around us. So the hero story is preserved, but now it has a much more spiritual aim to answer some of those deeper questions that he's been asking himself. When he rewrites Life is a Dream, it's a fascinating pairing because he wrote the first one in his mid-30s. So all of the military experience is there. The questions that anyone having gone through a war would ask is all in this. Questions about power, questions about prestige, questions about any of these political realities. And his idea of freedom is given in this context of politics and of youth and of status. He does it masterfully and even reaches toward a much more mature stance in his philosophical treatment of these themes. However, when he writes his auto, he's in his late 70s. So now this young courtier, this young soldier, philosopher, now has 40 more years of life experience, extreme loss, looking at kings toppled and new kings coming up. There was a change of rule that was very disturbing for Spain at that time. And, this new king is, people are questioning if the Habsburg inbreeding is in fact damaged this new king. So the later Calderon is looking at all of this scope, and instead of the court of Polonia, which is the setting for the earlier Life as a Dream, he now sets it in the court of the universe. And instead of the question being, will Segismundo, the prince, be a worthy ruler of this court? Will he be able to overcome what destiny has prophesied about him? The question becomes, is the human person a fitting caretaker for the universe? And the whole question of our free will, what is its function? How do we team it with our understanding? How do we team it with grace? How do these components really allow us to learn from our mistakes, to overcome the traps that are set for us within power plays and within situations? Just because someone is high status, do they have to use it for their own good? Or could they possibly use it for the betterment of others? These are the lessons that the main characters in both of these plays grapple with. But the second play is much more mystical, but it's also just as amusing, just as fun. The characters are very much within the same comic tradition, and he parallels characters from his earlier plays in the later play. There are entire monologues that are replicated. His first play, Life is a Dream, 1635, is known as the Hamlet of Spain. And there's a speech that Segismundo delivers very early on in the play while he's imprisoned in the tower that is kind of the to be or not to be of the Spanish Golden Age. That monologue is almost completely replicated. But instead of someone who is imprisoned in a tower, it's put in the mouth of newborn man looking at his creation. And the freedom that he sees a bird having, or a beast having, or a fish having, and just as it drove Segismundo to a kind of a rage that he was deprived of that freedom, later on the monologue becomes, am I, as an aware being, as someone who has understanding, as someone who has this awareness that is given to me that's not given to the fish or the bird or the beast, isn't that a kind of imprisonment? And he recognizes his own awareness and his awareness of liberty and how incomplete it is. And he actually would rather be put back in the earth rather than bear the burden of awareness on his shoulders. That becomes the major theme of the second play, and throughout some masterful allegorical, mythical storytelling, Calderon retells the entire story of salvation history in a way that people who know the story backwards and forward sometimes will kind of say, yeah, I know what this is, but are then surprised by the things that Calderon does with it, surprised by the way that it alters from the story that we think we know. So that people who see this play very often say, I never heard the story this way, or I thought I knew this story, or there was so much more in the way that he tells it that really drew me to the heart of the matter and the heart of the questions of the story. That's the kind of incisive and dedicated thought and struggle with many of these difficult themes that really characterizes Calderon's playwriting.
Yes, I have to make a confession here. I have been teaching Life is a Dream, the 1635 version, for I won't say how many years, but I actually did not know that there was this second version out there until I heard about your production.
Most people don't, and in fact, I was in the same boat when I was in graduate school. I was actually in Columbia University's MFA acting program, and I was on run crew for production of Life is a Dream 1635. I was speaking to one of my professors, Nicholas Volz, and telling him how great it was to be able to hear the words of this masterpiece over and over again as I'm doing my job. And he said to me, well, do you know there's another one? And I was shocked that any playwright would rewrite something and then use the same title, which is interesting because he changes his titles for most of the other plays that he visits again. But hearing that, it sent me on a quest to find this play. And I found the original in a collection of the Autos Sacramentales that was in the archives in the University Library at Fordham, but I couldn't find an English translation of it anywhere. In fact, I went so far as to call the Hispanic Society of America, which deals in Iberian and Latin cultural events and research, and said, hey, I've been looking for this translation. I haven't been able to find it. And the attendant on the other end of the phone, I was so happy, had the greatest New York accent in the world. And she said to me, well, there's a reason why you can't find that translation. And I said, what is that? She said, it doesn't exist. So then a friend of mine from graduate school, Alfredo Galvan, and myself said, well, why don't we translate this? So in 1998-99, we would get together once a week, and we would just do a fixed amount at a time. We would go through our own translations and then compare notes. And then after meeting and kind of finding where the resonances were, where some things could be adjusted, we came up with this translation. So as far as I know, it's the only English translation of the auto. And it was first performed at Marquette University in the year 2000, which was the 400th anniversary of Calderon's birth. And it was particularly appropriate, too, because Marquette is a Jesuit school, like the Colegio de Madrid, where Calderon studied. And 2000 was not only Calderon's birth anniversary, it was also the Eucharistic Jubilee year. And the autos always have an element of dealing with how grace is present in the Eucharist, according to the teachings of the Catholic faith. So it was a great match for Marquette. People really enjoyed the production. They responded to it very, very deeply, so much so that the artistic director, Phyllis Ravel, of the company there, thought about taking the production elsewhere. And I had a connection at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. At first, we were going to consider doing it in the Spanish chapel to kind of complement the Golden Age theme of it. But when Jay Wegman, who was canon for culture and arts at the time, saw a rehearsal, he said, this is too big for this chapel. We should really do it in the sanctuary. And it was like it was built for that space. All of a sudden, there were resonances that came alive in the sanctuary that would not have happened if it was just in a theater. And so I learned a great deal about it in the course of doing that. This is the first professional production of that in English. Most recently, there have been other productions in Spanish-speaking countries where they do the original. Group in Mexico City, Ciertos Habitantes, just had a very successful run of the auto. But the reason why a lot of people don't know it is because a lot of his autos are simply dismissed as not being worthy of consideration the way his comedias were, or the way that some of his other dramatic forms were. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I think that some of these autos are actually even more intricate and succeed on not only the literary level, which his earlier work unquestionably succeeds at, but also evokes really a tremendous amount of reflection. There are some people who've seen it who've said that it made them change their mind about things that they thought they had their mind made up about. It made them reconsider questions that they thought they were done with long ago. And that's about the best thing that you would want from a piece of theater. So the fact that it's unknown is not surprising to me, because that's my own experience. However, there were some parts of it where, as I was translating it, I was just so moved by the power of the words, even reading it in Spanish, a language that is not my mother tongue, that I literally had to take a break because the power of the words was just so moving to me.
You're co-directing this production with Kelly Johnston, doing both of the plays together. Could you tell us, you mentioned this is the first time you'll be doing the 1677 version professionally. What will this production look like? Among other things, I understand that there's an interesting story behind some of the music that you'll be using.
Yes, absolutely. So the production that we did at Marquette, my friend and collaborator Elizabeth Suedos today actually is she passed away a year ago, and so her first year of memorial was in January, but today is her birthday, so it's ironic that we're having this interview today. Liz was writing music for a production of Hamlet at the Public Theater at the time that I was translating, and I asked her if she would do music for this production, and she very thankfully said that she would. She was very happy with the work, and she said it really moved her in many ways. The music is haunting, it's different styles, and I think she has really captured so much of the communal spirit of what the auto was in its own time and made it as accessible for a popular audience today. So what we've done is we've taken the first play, and we were looking through different translations, and there were some that were very, very close to the original, but would be very difficult on an audience. There were others that were very, very popular, but some translators took great liberties and actually invented whole speeches that Calderon never wrote. So going through all of those, we decided we have to do our own translation. So I spent the summer going through the original, word by word, going through what was the most essential thing that was needed to tell the story. And with an eye, having translated the later play first, with an eye to the overlap between the two plays. So when it was clear to me that Calderon was making a parallel in the second play, I would go back and compare the two and try and feature what he's doing, not only thematically, but also linguistically. So anyone coming to the production will notice that there are many lines that are repeated or nearly repeated from one production to the other. Calderon must have had great fun with that, and we certainly are having great fun with it as well. So the first play is again the Court of Polonia, and we're recognizing that both of these are in a way kind of fables. So there's a storybook feel to the production. It's done with a set that's modular and expressionistic, so that it's easily pliable and can fit the universe of both of these worlds. We've taken Liz's music, and since she passed, she wasn't able to write music for the first one, but what we've done is we've taken musical underscoring from the second play, and where its nascent element would exist in the first play, we've underscored the same music or variations on the theme of that music. So the two productions are tied together musically as well. That being said, there's also a great difference in style. Kelly Johnston's a very talented director, very devoted to the meaning of the text and storytelling, and so there's great fun. I come from a tradition of experimental theater where a lot of it is really demonstrated through movement and through gesture and through stage picture. And so that fits very well the allegorical world of the second play. But what has been fun along the process is working with Kelly. We assist each other. So when Kelly's directing the 1635, I'm his assistant. And when I'm directing the 1677, he's my assistant. So working that closely, we pick up on each other's work, on each other's styles, and we're able to dovetail the two pieces even more completely.
Calderon's Two Dreams runs February 10th through the 26th at the Ellen Stewart Theater at LaMaMa. We'll post in the show notes more information about where you can get tickets, how you can learn more about the play. George, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
If you'd like to continue today's conversation, please visit howlround.com and follow HowlRound and @TheaterHistory on Twitter. A big thank you to the staff at HowlRound who make this show possible. Our theme music is The Black Crook Gallop, which comes to us courtesy of the New York Public Library Libretto Project and Adam Roberts. Thanks as well to Tip Kress, who designed our logo. And finally, thank you for listening.